Okay, I think we are live. Welcome everybody to the node.js Diagnostic team meeting. We are reactivating the team, so good news. We have a lot of participants. Okay, I think we are live.
Okay.
Welcome everybody to the, as always. Um, so before start, does anybody have any announcement? I don't think so. I will just ask you to include your name to the minutes if you haven't already. I sent in the chat. And Stephen, you want to lead? Do you want to lead?
Sure. Um, yeah. So, well, first thing in the agenda, I guess, is past new meeting time. It's now. Um, we're all here for that. Don't know if anything needs to be added to that. Probably not. Uh, Transfer of
It
part
looks
of the
like this
middle.
is a good new time based on the number of people.
Hmm?
I said based on the number of people, it looks like chose a good new time, so it's good.
Yeah. Yeah, the transfer of import in the middle. I pinged Brian to see if he can be here. I think the hope was for him to be here, but yeah, might
Yeah,
look
I
at the
have set
next
up.
things first while I wait for his response. There's new website is live. Diagnostics section could use some love. Um, yeah, so I had to look through. There's all the new like tutorial kind of or like guide stuff on the new website. Uh, there's a lot of great content in there, but the diagnostics stuff, a lot of it is fairly lacking, I think. Um, so I think there's a lot we could add to that to build it out more. Yeah. If anyone wants to look at that and think about things that they're experts in, might be good to add to that. Would be nice to have some volunteers. Um,
Okay. So about the transport import in the middle, what is missing to transfer to the Node.js? I remember that the npm package, uh, we have already transferred to the Node.js org, but we need to transfer the repository itself, right?
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Also, with the folks who have volunteered in the issue, I have invited them to the newly created team, and I have seen everyone have accepted the invitation. So if you haven't received the invitation, please comment on the issue so that we can invite you as well.
Um,
Is there a general timeline on when the transfer will happen?
Not really. My hope was it would be done before the meeting, but still kind of sitting. And yeah, I'm not aware of anything blocking it, but Brian is the one that has the keys to do that. Um,
We just need Brian to press a button at this point, is that right?
yeah, well, like he's had questions about like the process. Like basically his concern has just been like if like when we press the button to transfer it, we need to make sure that we have the power still to actually be able to make updates and stuff. Um,
So I guess on that topic, what is like typically like the release process for packages that are, I guess, like owned by the Node.js organization? Is it like is it expected to be like a follow certain cadence or just release whenever? Also, like, is there I guess, like precedence on number of approvals something needs to get, or like anything like that? Like, for example, does a TSC member need to sign off on this kind of stuff, or is it fine just like the maintainers of the package can handle releases and all that kind of things?
Yeah, so right now, our process is all just internal. We don't really have a process for like external contributors contributing things. It just happens and we on our own accept it. Um, so yeah, we'll need to figure out like what the actual process is after it lands. But
Um,
yeah,
For instance, we can use the same approach we use for Unity. It's all automated. It's pretty much what Release Please does from Google. You submit a pull request, a new automation request to proposal is created, and then it goes to the NPM automatically. But Unity does it a bit different because it also provides the uh, provenance. But Michael?
I just wanted to add, like, the general question is there are no specific requirements. It's up to the team that manages the repository to decide how to manage that, what approvals are needed. So right now, like, there's no preconceived notion of it must be done this way. Now it is good, like as Raphael was saying, like there's some examples you might want to to use. And even it can start manually, which is, I think, like to handle that transition period. The key thing in my mind is that we've agreed, and I think we started that discussion, and the issue is like who are going to be the maintainers, right? Because it'll be up to those maintainers to then define governance. They'll be the ones who, like, if you're a maintainer, in theory, I guess again, it's like up to the governance that you want to put together, but like you could say like all maintainers can push it manually when needed, or you could say, no, the subset of maintainers as elected by the rest of the maintainers can do it. But like the key thing is to get the list of maintainers and create the team. And then so when the repo comes over, everybody who's in that list will have maintainer capability. And so, like, for example, Steven's been able to push out releases and do whatever in the repo, he would still have the same level of access to be able to do that. The main thing that would have changed is now everybody on the technical steering committee as organizational owners has access, and that's really the main difference, I think, day to day that would initially happen. But then, not that the technical steering committee would necessarily do anything. It's just like we have access to all the repos, so that's why it would be like that.
That makes sense. One more thing I wanted to ask about was, do we, for like security reports and similar kind of things, do we follow like the Node.js process? Like I know there's like a hacker one for Node.js and things like that. What's kind of like the expectation there, or is this something that again the maintainers completely just decide and roll with?
I think it really depends on the package, and considering the nature of this package, it's a bit hard to assess a report because uh, I believe that most of the vulnerability refers to when the attacker has access to the code, and per Node.js threat model, we trust in the code run. So technically, most of the vulnerabilities will be assessed as informative, not as a valid one. But yeah, we can use the same approach we use for Unity. They receive through GitHub advisory, and then we assess CVE. But we also receive reports through HackerOne. So, but my suggestion is to always use GitHub advisory for non-Node.js core, because it's easy to show the patch and invite non-members to review that thing.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think back to, like, it's kind of up to the team to decide what works. Generally, as Raphael said, like you know, for example, like Node add-on API, we don't have a separate reporting process. And so like, if somebody reported that one to HackerOne, I think we would say, sure, and we know the people to pass on and get involved. So that's an option for low volume. I think if once like Indici is a little bit of a different one where there's a lot more going on and there's a lot more reports, that actually turns out to work better, just like, you know, Raphael said, using their own tools, right? So I don't know which one you think it's going to fall into this category, but making a decision one way or the other is probably the key thing to start out. Here's so the repo is clear, like here's how you report it.
Yeah, for HackerOne specifically, if we decide, okay, let's use HackerOne for import in the middle, this will be quite difficult because you can't give permissions based on namespace. For instance, if you need to be on the security team to review import in the middle reports, you need access to review all the Node.js reports. So which is a bit hard to give.
But I think we can, like, we can invite people and so like to particular issues. So for me, it really comes back to like, do
Oh
we
yeah,
expect one every 6 months? If it's one every 6 months, then like just saying that we'll accept them through that, and like the triagers can say, okay, well, I know who to add, like, because like for Node add, like I said, for Node add-on API, we don't have a different way. It's not an issue though, because there's not very many. So to me, it comes down to like one every 6 months, maybe we'll be happy. You know, and again, I'm only just one of the triagers. The other people might have different opinions, but I suspect we could make the case to just have it come in through that. If it's going to be more active, than doing something on your own totally is the right way to go.
Yep. Yeah, we've so far had one vulnerabilities report ever. So yeah, I don't expect huge amount of traffic from us on that.
Can we
And
just
it's
add a
something we can
security.md
change.
that copies what Indici does and points to the, so one liner that points to the node repo security.md and say we're good. The top of that link then is just reporting to HackerOne, and then presumably the people watching the node ones can invite import in the middle maintainers if there's a particular issue.
Yeah, I think if it's going to be once, like I said, once every 6 months, if it starts to be a problem, I think the triagers might then say, hey, do something
Yeah,
slightly.
yeah.
But that's a good way to
So,
start, in my opinion, anyway.
right. Sounds good.
Stephen, I have a question. What are what is the roadmap for this package? Like is something missing, or do we have something that we need to fix to support new versions of Node.js or something like that? Or it's just about maintaining and assessing addressing open issues?
Uh, it's a combination of things. I think most of the people that are presently maintaining import in the middle are to varying degrees of the belief it's kind of a trash fire, but it's the trash fire we have. Um, there's been a bunch of limitations in like the module loaders API that resulted in it having to exist the way it does, as Joey is currently working on making a better module loader API. We'll probably want to rewrite a bunch of this eventually. So yeah, there'll be like fairly major changes to it, hopefully in the future to make it less bad. But
Okay.
yeah, there's also like we've had lots of issues with like the way it works at the moment. It essentially has to do like syntax parsing, and that means like we have to use a syntax parser that actually matches what new syntax people are trying to use, and it doesn't always keep up. So we've had issues with like certain types of syntax just crashing things and all sorts of stuff like that. So I think there's like a combination of like we need to get it to actually support all the things. Uh, Another level of like I think parts of it could be coded a little more defensively. So if something isn't supported, it doesn't just explode. It just like falls back to the default behavior or something.
I believe that the ultimate actually the main goal is to not use import in the middle anymore when using Node.js, right? Is to move all the using tracing channel or diagnostic channel to Node.js core. Remove the need to have a package that will monk patch stuff, and we use that through Node.js APIs instead. Like recently, we have landed the module loading on diagnostic channel, so now you can intercept whenever require or import happen. Uh, Currently, I don't think you can patch it, but I think this is the ultimate goal, right?
Yeah. So in theory, eventually we can push diagnostics channel out into all the ecosystem modules, and then we won't need to patch anything anymore. That is a very much big asterisk on in theory. Um, like it, I don't think needing to patch modules is ever going to go away. I think it's going to mostly not be required, but there's always going to be like a handful of modules that just are against doing it or just don't have the resources to maintain it and refuse to add it, or like they just aren't aware of it and didn't include it when they added it, or like a lot of APMs we have to support back to like a billion years ago. So like we have, like we still have customers that are on like node 12, and so like we can't say no to them. So like like we can have a like ideal scenario for some of our customers, but yeah, we're probably always going to need to have some degree of patching. But the more we can minimize that, the less we have to care about it being not great. Um, like from my perspective, like if we have a better way of doing things in like future versions of Node that has like less impact on the process and things like that, then that does give us a little more of an argument to tell our customers, hey, upgrade your stuff because this version is so much better. Um, the more leverage we have to be able to do that, the better. I think it's really difficult to convince some of our customers to upgrade.
There's an issue I found recently, or issue that was reported that I looked into, where because the wrapping code imports the module that's being wrapped, it affects side effects and what was the issue? Primitive exports that are primitives that are exported essentially get copied because of the way the code's wrapped, and that breaks OpenAI and a couple of other things. And I don't think there's a huge. I'm not sure there's a huge amount we can do about that by wrapping the code the way we are.
Yeah, so there's the current approach has a whole lot of issues that like there's a huge amount of edge cases to how it works. And so yeah, we've been wanting to do something that like require in the middle is great because you just have the runtime objects, you just hatch the runtime objects and you're done. Import in the middle is a lot more complicated because we have to deal with things at the code text level to even be able to like wire up the things to be able to modify the actual runtime things. And then like even then there's still a bunch of limitations around how it works like that. And like we're modifying the binding externally, but we're not modifying it within the module that actually exists in. So like if inside of a module, like it directly calls like say you have like read file internally calls like open file, or like it calls like open, read, and close or something like that. Like if it's internally calling these functions from like within the scope, those are not going to be patched. Like it's not going to access the patched version. It's going to access the one in scope because the patched one is made in a separate like wrapper module essentially. Like we have all these limitations that we can't work around. Whereas if we had something that was more like require in the middle, it'd work a whole lot better. And that's hopefully where Joey is trying to go with that. I don't think we can fix that specific problem of like patching something and having it like change within its own scope. Just because of how ESM itself works. But yeah, we can at least like run the original module, have all its exports constructed correctly, and then like do the wiring up of the like shim module at runtime instead of like in this weird parch time.
So, I mean, all of that's very true. And even if the proposals and loaders go through and come in the next major release, it's going to be years before we can get rid of the patching of import in the middle.
Yeah.
So, what was the hang up for hitting the transfer repository button?
Yeah, so I sent a message to Brian earlier, hoping that he could make it to the meeting. He has a conflict apparently though. But from what he said, he's now happy about everything from the node.js side. The only thing we're waiting on now is a director approval, which he said we'll probably get by tomorrow.
Okay.
But hopefully we'll be merging this tomorrow. It's taken a lot longer than I would have hoped.
Is this the meeting, or would there be a different one to establish those ground rules that was being discussed earlier, or do it in issues maybe?
Well, I think we should probably have a conversation in the next meeting. Hopefully Brian can actually be at that one. And like we can open issues ahead and like start discussing, but we'll just tag all of those as like that like DAG agenda.
Okay.
And yeah, if there's no solution decided within the issues before the meeting, then we can discuss it at the meeting.
Okay.
Is it worth having a separate Slack channel for the maintainers for this, or do we use the diagnostic working group Slack channel? Or
We do actually have where is the channel? In the OpenJS Slack, there's the import in the middle channel.
oh. Yeah, I learned. Okay, thanks.
Should we move all the conversation to diagnostic channel?
Yeah, there is also like a diagnostics working group channel in the OpenJS Slack if
Yep.
people are not in it. I think it's probably better to keep it as a separate channel. There's enough to talk about that I don't want it to drown out other things, but that's just my personal feeling on it.
Okay.
Like the channel's already there, so I don't really see much problem in using what's already there.
Okay,
Yeah.
so another thing, I'm not sure when the right time to bring this up is, but we'd in earlier discussions for moving import in the middle over, we'd also talked about moving require in the middle. And I'm cool with that, and I think Thomas would like to see that too. And there's no opposition in Elastic. So do we do a parallel thing where we have a require in the middle maintainers and import in the middle, or is it going to be mostly similar people? For those of you here that are signed up to be maintainers of import in the middle, do you really have any use or interest in require in the middle as well, or
Yeah, I suspect it's mostly going to be similar maintainers.
Mhm.
And we also have another package that we want to donate, DC polyfill, diagnostics channel polyfill module, which we haven't really got started on the process for transferring that yet, but that was the next thing we planned after we like transferring import in the middle is kind of like our first main thing we wanted to get transferred, and we're like kind of going through that as the experiment to see like how does this actually work? Does it work? And then like
Okay.
if it works, then we'll start transferring other things.
Are there more beyond that? Because I wonder if it makes sense instead of having, I don't know. It's hard to know without knowing ahead what all the things are. Do we want a separate channel for each of these? Do we want a separate team for each of these two? Or do we just want one group?
Yeah,
Mostly overlaps.
yeah, DC polyfill is, I think, the only other thing we currently have a specific plan to transfer, but I think our hope is that we can like integrate better with Node to be able to just build stuff within the Node ecosystem rather than building it privately within like Datadog organization where outside contribution is harder.
Yeah, I think both modules fit in the same. I mean, they definitely fit in the same space, so I don't see why the same teams wouldn't be really maintaining the same team wouldn't be maintaining both of them. So
Okay. Do we want to just keep import in the middle as the channel and team name then? And its mantra is this handful of 2, maybe 3 eventually repos? Or do we change the name of those things?
I'm okay either way.
Yeah. I think for like actual access control, we'll probably want separate like GitHub teams for the different things.
Okay.
But I think for like generalized ownership, like all of it can just follow under Diagnostics Working Group. Like there's going to be a bunch of overlap that like people will exist on all of the teams, I think. But I think there'll be a certain amount of like some people will maybe be interested in knowing what's going on in a particular thing, but not really care about working in it. Especially like I'm trying to get some people from Dino and Bun involved as well, and like they don't have like a need to work with require in the middle if they're all just like ESM based. So that like they'll probably be interacting on like what do loaders look like across runtimes, things like that. So they be involved in like import in the middle direction in the future, and like DC polyfill.
That's fine. So separately, I'll ask around and get help to start moving require in the middle over as well. We'll then, I guess, so theoretically the plan then would be a separate GitHub team, and then we can just have require in the middle Slack channels. No reason not to have a separate one. Okay, cool.
So,
All right. Do we have anything else to discuss? Any other question?
yeah, if there's like anyone else that wants to try and transfer projects, I guess there's been a bunch of effort going into like trying to transfer import in the middle. It would be nice if we can streamline the process a bit more, like even if just like specifically for transferring stuff to the diagnostics working group, because I feel like diagnostics working group would want to own a bunch of different tools.
So on that front, there like the node project does have two orgs. We have like the PKGS org. So like the package maintenance team requested and we set up a new organization. So like if the diagnostics team is going to kind of be the parent for a bunch of modules, that might be something to consider. And then, you know, the package maintenance team has more control / ability to do things directly in the PKGS org. Maybe that makes sense in the diagnostics org as well. Not to say to do anything different now, but like that might be something to think about, like if there's going to be a bunch of these. And, you know, that's one way to sort of streamline the process, but it's a little bit of a different, you know, it's a bigger ask in the beginning to say like, let's create a new organization that then sort of there's a charter of responsibility to the diagnostics group.
But yeah, just like we've also historically been the group that I think most things transferred into the node org have come from. Like we had like node inspect before and things like that. So yeah, like if at least diagnostics working group specifically can, I don't know, have like augmentation of the process or something to just be like this is the process to transfer into node generally, and then these are the extra things that are involved for transferring to diagnostics working group, and we just add some like extra stuff to make sure it's smoother or something. I don't know.
Yeah, I think we're always happy to have a PR to add in more instructions or context or whatever. So,
and yeah, I don't know if like anyone else in the call has like ideas for things that we should share. Like yeah, it's like I've generally been of the view that like APM vendors historically have not been great at open source. We're trying to get better at it. But yeah, it's kind of been my experience that a lot of APMs have been a bit protectionist of their libraries with the view that's like their ingest is part of their secret sauce, when really it's just like their backend processing and their UI visualizations that's their secret sauce. The ingest is just table stakes. And so like I'm personally of the opinion that like most of the stuff we do should just be in the open. And so like I think open telemetry is like an example of the market kind of moving in that direction. And so like there's a bunch of stuff that's open, but we still have a bunch of stuff. Like the various APMs still have a bunch of stuff that could probably be moved into the open. Yeah, if you can think of things that would benefit from like being in the open and having more than just you maintaining it, yeah, I'm happy to talk about having that as part of the diagnostics working group.
When I was doing APM work at Upbeat, I tried to make all the modules as separate modules and release them as MIT. And some of them have been transferred to Elastic, and I think most of them are still MIT. But there might be something there that's still used by people. I'm not sure. But hopefully the open source license should be okay.
Yeah, none of those ones that you transferred have been relicensed, so they basically just got moved in org, but no other changes.
Yeah, right. Yeah, there's a bunch of like infrastructural things as well that like not providing the actual like functionality of the product we're selling, but just supporting things. Like at Elastic goes to like test all the versions thing, which is a useful thing that's basically all APMs need to do.
So I think potentially, I'm not sure if that's probably still on my account.
That's still under you.
I think that one was just under you, but yeah, having like shared universal tooling around building the stuff we're trying to build would also be useful.
Unfortunately, I think my product is, I think all the products are a little bit designed specifically toward their institution. So it'd be hard to like genericize most of the stuff, like instrumenting Pinot or instrumenting Express or something like that, and making it a public module. I feel like that's probably going to be a difficult ask with the way things are currently implemented. But maybe there's a way to do it through OTel, because I think most vendors are eyeing toward supporting OTel natively. So could be something there.
I am curious about that functionality that you referenced, Raphael. This is the add diagnostic channel events to module loading. Is that what you're pointing to earlier?
Yeah, let me get the pull request for you.
Yeah, well, I have it up, I think.
Yeah, it was opened 2 years ago by Stephen, but it was not landed until a week ago. So let me find it.
I just linked it in chat. Is there an intent to be able to patch those things going through or not? This is just like, hey, by the way, we loaded some.
So I think this is more how tracing or diagnostic channel events work. They operate, as far as I know, on immutable objects. Right, Stephen?
So the diagnostic channel and tracing channel is not specifically immutable, so we do in some places rely on actually being able to patch things like HTTP headers. However, ESM, like the spec of ESM itself is that the
Doesn't
module
allow it,
record is
yeah.
immutable.
Yeah.
So there's just no way that we can make ESM patchable through diagnostic channel. We have to have a layer in between. So like essentially like the way to do ESM patching is to actually replace the module entirely with a shim that then loads the original. And so
Yep.
we
Yeah, I
have to
understand.
be in the loader to do that.
So like I don't see the basic idea of import in the middle going away for ever, as it whatever. I don't need to rehash this discussion. We had this earlier. There are always going to be this long tail of modules that you're going to want to patch, even if there is some uptake of doing native diagnostic channels or open telemetry instrumentation in the client libraries that people want to instrument. So yeah. Okay.
Yeah, as James said, we need the loader to return a mutable object like required does. But I think that's per spec, right? So it's a long journey to make it happen, and probably it won't happen.
Yeah. I I've tried having some conversations about like ESM by the spec is immutable at the external facing module record level. It would be interesting if we could have a hook into like it essentially creates like a context where all of this code lives and then creates some module record as the exports for that or like how it exposes it. But if we could hook into like a different level of V8 and just have like a V8 specific API or something that's like give us access to this like before the module records like exposing it, then like we could in theory maybe have things actually mutable, but convincing V8 folks to do things that like while not technically in violation of the spec is kind of stepping around the spec. is not an easy thing to do. But yeah, that's a hard conversation and may lead to nowhere.
All right, so it sounds like we're just at the point where we're waiting on Ben to or Brian to do the merge and move from there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think once it takes place as well, like I just noticed the team in Node.js, there's only a couple maintainers. We probably want to sync that with the NPM maintainers, which is a bigger list.
You mean the import in the middle maintainers?
Yeah, like in NPM, there's more people who are maintainers than like in the import in the middle team. I think there was only 2 people who were as the maintainers. My guess is
Isn't
that
it the other way around?
I think that's the other way around. This is the team from Node.js I sent in the chat.
Well, the team that was shown, those are members, but they're not maintainers. Like if you look at the role and I filtered by role maintainer, there's only 2 people.
Okay.
So I think it's just a matter of like making sure that everybody who's a maintainer in NPM has also got the maintainer role in that team, because I think that'll be, otherwise you're a member, and I think when we transfer over, we need to say like, okay, this team has, if you're a member of the team, what do you get, or maintainer, and so like associated basic to the team with the repo, but the maintainers will have people in the maintainer role will have more access than people in the other role. So sorry, Chenzong.
I'm sorry. Yeah, the maintainer of the team just maintain the member of the team, so it doesn't give you access different
Okay.
to different repo. So if you need a different access to a repo, then you need a new team.
Okay, so basically, really, it won't make any real difference. Okay, got it.
Yeah. So it only matters when you add a new team members, but yeah, but things
It's not as
I believe,
important. Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
yeah, I believe our process to add the new members afterwards will be nominating in the public space. So I don't think the maintainer of the team would really matter in that case.
Yeah, no, sorry, I thought it might have more impact in the short term, but it sounds like it really won't, so not an issue.
I do think we should have like a team of people that are responsible for publishing to NPM, and we do need to establish those ground rules for like when things get merged, like 2 or 3 people required to approve and that kind of thing.
But I think our ideal is to not have humans deploying it. We want to
Whatever
set up
that is,
automation for this eventually.
Yeah, we just need to open those issues and get the discussion going. And
Yeah, it's good to have it agreed and written down, right? Like that way there's no, people won't get upset because there's a misunderstanding or something.
Who should I reach out to join the maintainers list? I didn't sign up before because it was only import in the middle, which I haven't really had anything to do with. But if require in the middle also gets into the same group, so to speak, it would make sense that I was there as well.
So the next step is probably I'll open up, I'll copy what the import in the middle admin, Node.js admin PR was or issue to get the ball rolling on getting that moved over. And it sounds like what from others were saying that we'll have a separate Node.js or a separate GitHub org team for require in the middle. So you can definitely get on that one. So it'll be an independent question. Like
Great.
I'm sure you'd be welcome on the import in the middle maintainers as well. But yeah. But I'll make sure to tag you on that when it comes up.
Not.
You're right.
Yeah, and I think it is good to keep just for general good security practice, it's good to limit the maintainers in the people in the maintainer teams to people who are actually going to be active and need that access.
I agree.
Okay.
So does a person with the maintainer role have the ability to like add new people or like change other people's roles? So
I think that's what Chen Zhang was saying. The difference is if you're the maintainer, it's like you're the maintainer of the team.
yeah,
Right. So the
it's
team
like
will be
admin
associated.
just for that team, essentially.
Right. Like, if I'm understanding correctly, go ahead.
Yeah, and all TSC members have the access to manage the team members of the team. And at the moment, Brian also has the access to add members to the team. But I believe that we should nominate new members in the public space, like open an issue. So that's a normal process of the rest of the report, if I recall correctly, for other working group members. So
Yeah, we already do that for like diagnostics working group itself. So yeah, it makes sense to do it that way. But yeah, just like for like once that gets like reviewed and approved though, then like someone has to actually do the work to add them to the team. So if we have a person that is on the team that's accessible to do that, it's good rather than like it's preferable that we don't have to like go and talk to the TSC every time we want to like add a person to any of the teams or something like that.
No, we don't.
That'd just be annoying.
Like, yeah, I'd almost recommend that, like, once things settle, everybody who's like in that particular case, like you're already giving right access to the repo. So then having, you need a reasonable amount of trust. So giving them the extra access to be able to manage the people in the team, maybe just like keep those in sync. That's the simplest approach, right?
What about just like creating new teams? Does that have to go through TSC or some other?
Generally that we do ask that, like, there's an admin issue that says like, hey, gonna create this new team, here's the reason, and here's the people we're gonna put in it. And here's here's how we're gonna administer it, right? So then, like, that is an ask generally, just so there's some documentation somewhere of why it exists and so forth.
Yeah, maybe I'll see if we can put together like a doc for like because I think diagnostics working group is going to want to transfer like a couple things in. It might be good to have a doc. It's like from our perspective, like when we go to do this, we need to do these couple things. We need to like create a team for this, so we have to go talk to the admin repo and ask for this and any of these steps which rely on other people to look at it. We should have documented there. Or if it's in the more general documents for adding new projects, we should point to that.
Yeah, if it's general guidance that you've learned having gone through the process, and that's useful putting into the regular docs on terms of like there's that GitHub org management. It wouldn't hurt to have it in there as well. But if you think it's more specific to the diagnostic stuff, then yeah, having that as a additional guidance somewhere in there is good.
Yeah, I think that's probably everything. Unless anyone has anything else to bring up.
right. So,
Me.
sorry?
All good for me.
Okay. So see you in the next meeting. Thank you everybody for joining. I will submit the minutes. Feel free to approve.